Caleb.
Okay.
Welcome. Welcome. For those who don't know, I wasn't recording the first round, so here we are. So, well,
Take two.
luckily we're only like a question or so in, so too far in. Rookie mistakes. What are you gonna do? That said, okay, so Caleb, for everybody who doesn't know us, I'm just gonna give a quick background again about how we know each other. We went to graduate school together, Dominican, and we both were in a placement there. So we worked with university staff, students, kind of that population, got to know
Mhm.
each other well. So we've known each other now for about 15, 14, 15 years.
A long time. A good amount of time, we'll
A
say.
good amount of time. Okay, so Caleb, can you tell me a little bit again about your group practice that you started here?
Yeah. So I'm Caleb. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. To give you a long, mildly interesting history about who I am professionally. But the most important part is my wife and I started a group practice last year, Golden Gate Counseling Services, that is virtual and also has a presence in San Francisco. We just hired a new associate, which is all very exciting. And our goal is to usher people into this field in a way that feels good for them, good for us, good for our clients. And what I mean by that is like those 3,000 hours we have to get to be license eligible are hard and arduous and often sort of indentured servitude. I personally did 2,100 of them for free.
Yep.
It's not so good. And so we're really looking to build a community of therapists, but also to support our community by helping therapists come into this field in a way that doesn't require generosity or charity from other people. So they could make enough money to be just a therapist, so they could be happy, stress-free, and well supported, and in a way that we, like as a practice, aren't niched as a whole practice, but each one of us gets to have our own niche
Mhm.
and sort of like take care of a family unit, so to speak. So I see couples and folks with substance use disorders and a lot of men. My wife specializes in pre and perinatal psychology. So like preconception through child rearing and all of the things that happen in between. Some of them are exciting, some of them are sad, but she does all that. And then our new associate, Raina, who is awesome, she sees LGBTQ folks, um, people with neurodiversity and veterans and their families as like affinity groups. And hopefully we'll be expanding this year. We'll see. Um, so yeah, I guess
That's
that's my
exciting. I think you
mission.
mentioned groups too before.
Yes. Oh, right. You can stay tuned for groups. That's the ambitious goal for this year is also launch some psychotherapy groups.
Mhm. Great. And just so everybody knows, the information to reach Caleb is below in the chat stuff. Okay, so why did you become a therapist, Caleb?
As I was saying earlier, I really wish I had like a super compelling, heartwarming story. A lot of people do. I don't. The answer, unfortunately, is just Google. So I guess search engine optimization is really the answer. I
Very
graduated,
apropos for this area.
right? I graduated with an undergraduate degree in psychology and decided I was never going to school again because I hated it. And so I spent 2 years cobbling together full-time hours with part-time jobs, and then eventually got very sick of that. And so I decided to see what I could do with my undergrad degree. And it turns out nothing. You can go to grad school. You can work as a milieu frontline staff in a group home or at a residential facility, or you could find something else to do. And so I built this big spreadsheet that I wish I still had, and it whittled down all the options into essentially a doctorate. Applied to Cal, did not get it. Sent me a great rejection letter. And then a master's in counseling psychology program. And so they were competing with my dual ambition by parallel process of trying to get into the fire department, and grad school called me first. It's a happy accident, I would say.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Do you ever regret not going the fire?
Oh no, it's terrible. They work terrible hours. The incidence of cancer is very high. I don't know a single person in the fire department who's not hurt.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a tough job,
I get to
definitely.
make my own hour. It's so much better.
Uh-huh. Which leads me to my next question. What do you like about being a therapist?
I mean, the corny answer is everything, but that's not actually true. Uh, Running a small business is a lot of work, and although I've heard rumor that that's changing in grad school, our graduates program did not talk about that at all. I
Oh,
feel
that's
like every
good.
single one of our professors had a private practice. But that's about all we knew about it. And then the message was either overtly or covertly that you will get a job in community mental health or at a nonprofit. You will like it because you didn't become a therapist to get rich. Um, so like running a business, I like most of that part. Some of it's hard. I think being a therapist, the thing I like most about it is I like that I get to help people, which is pretty corny. But in the like niche affinity groups that I work with, couples and folks with substance use disorders, like that hour a week that we work is like really not that much time in your life. But the changes that people make as a result of the work that we do and then they go practice somewhere else can be really substantial. And it's like like the grandma test, right? You go see your grandma, she's like, "Oh my God, you're so tall." And you're like, "Whatever, grandma," right? Like that's how therapy goes for the people who are in it. But for me, I remember them from like the beginning. I'm like, "Oh my God, you've changed so much." And that's what I really love about therapy.
Yeah. Do you ever get, I get this a lot. I wonder if you do too. Probably. It's probably a therapist thing, but people will say like, I'm not making any progress. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm
Oh
watching.
yeah, I can just hit you with like 12 bullet point things that are like
Yeah.
totally different about you now. Yes, 100%.
Oh,
And then like the goals evolve and change and it's not great for like as a business plan, but I like making myself redundant in people's lives. Like eventually we're gonna have a session where it's like, I don't think we need to do this anymore.
yeah. 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 I always tell people when I'm first meeting them, my goal is to get you out of therapy, which sounds counterintuitive to a business model, but it's reality. I want you to not need my services ultimately.
I mean, I love my clients. I really do. They're all pretty wonderful. I don't want to see them every week for 18 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they don't want to see me that much either.
That was kind of the model, I feel like, when we were going through school, right? Everybody was talking about, like, oh, I've had this client for 35 years. And it's like, well, why? Why, why aren't they making progress?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds rough.
yeah. Okay. So you mentioned a little bit of this, couples and substance use disorders. What are are those modalities that you use with those niches?
Yeah, I mean, there's like lots of jargon and lots of acronyms, but for couples therapy, it's sort of rooted. I've done some training in EFT therapy, so emotion focused therapy, which is finds its origins in attachment theory. It's evidence based. People love it. You can get certified in it. I don't know if I'll go that far, but I really like the idea of sort of conceptualizing couples as an attachment. It helps explain a lot why our attachment wounding or like the things that didn't go very well in our early life, like rear up hard in our current relationships. I think it also helps like the psychoanalytic, like who you are informs who you were, vice versa. Sort of like looking at people as a some other parts a little bit and then an interaction as a result of it. Um, I also like sort of steal the ideas from structural family therapy about like equalizing hierarchies in couples. I think a lot of couples show up with pretty substantial power differentials. Be
Mhm.
really challenging. And then sort of like the basic tenets of good recovery work around drugs and alcohol, things like honesty, truth, communication, boundaries. Therapists love that. But like really helping people identify what they want out of this and not what I think they should do. I tell people a little sarcastically and flippantly, is like, I don't really care what you guys decide to do with your relationship. What I care about is that you know why that's your decision and you guys both know how you got there. So move to Montana, adopt 100 German Shepherds, live in a van. I don't care, right? Start a business. Doesn't really matter to me, right? Like I'm invested in you guys understanding you, understanding your partner and how you got to where you're at right now and then where you want to go. Um, for I guess substance use or recovery, people with drugs and alcohol, I think it's sort of spectrum, right? Like harm reduction, but I actually do believe in harm reduction. I think a lot of people say harm reduction is like they're like, "Yeah, sure, right? But the idea that they'll just back end you into sobriety. I think like well-defined harm reduction or moderation is possible and really interesting. But we have to be really clear and honest about what that means. And so talk about that as a framework. I also like helping people get sober if that's something you want to do, or even just explore like what is my relationship to substances? Like why is it like this? And so it's not all just conversation, but I do think helping people gain insight as to what their motivation is, what they get out of it, what they don't get out of it anymore. Um, so stages of change, like motivational interviewing, things like that. But often like, goal setting, I think a lot of people don't um, initially have a capacity to understand like how this stuff gets in the way of the things they really want. And I don't know. I have a sober dad. He got sober in AA. Like, I'm a believer in 12 step, but it's not the only way to do it. I don't think you have to necessarily go to a program or go to a treatment center to get sober, but I do know that you can't do it by yourself. And for some people, that I can't do it by myself is literally just talking about it in therapy. For other people, that's a running group or a knitting circle or a meeting or whatever. So there's a lot to that. And then I guess I see another group. I see a lot of men, sort of as a broad group. Being a male therapist is a diversity issue, I guess. But I do see a lot of men who are new or expecting parents, which is an exciting group in like identity formation change time. And I see a lot of men who are getting divorced, which is less exciting, but also an identity formation change of time. So yeah, I guess that's what I see. And I mean, the bad jokes I tell people about this is like I've never owned a cardigan. I've never enjoyed a hot cup of tea. Like I am not that therapist like at all. And if you know them, if you want one, I know lots of those people. I will find you one.
Sure.
I'm gonna tell you bad jokes. I'm gonna ask you lots of questions. I'm gonna tell you a dumb story or make a stupid metaphor, and we're gonna sort of like figure this out together. I have a lot of training, a lot of experience, like reasonably good ideas, but it's you. It's like it's your life, and so I want to help you get your fingerprints on it. So like I'm gonna ask you questions like I actually want to know the answer to.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the framing. I love the framing. It just reminds me why we're friends because I'm like, yes, totally get it. Um, okay, so let's see. What does a typical session look like? So if those are your modalities, like is it I mean, it sounds very kind of organic in a lot of ways, which, part
Yeah, I think so. Like couple session, like the first session is pretty structured, and then it gets a little bit more loosey-goosey from there. And in general, I'm gonna like take time getting a history from you. Like I don't have an intake session.
of.
I don't have an intake. I have an intake form I'll email you and hopefully you'll fill out. I'll remind you once or twice, I guess, right? But like I want to as organically as possible like learn about you and like file that away for me. First session we go over like group rules and remind you of the cancellation policy and shit like that. But like for the first session, I saw a new couple today. She talked about group rules. There's three of them. They're very straightforward. Good agreement on those. Then I make people tell me their love story because I'm corny.
I like it. I like it.
But also because I want to know how they tell it. Can they follow the instructions? Are they able to do it together, although they're not supposed to? Like, do they give each other nonverbal cues? Can they like gently and kindly correct a fact? And then also it serves as a backbone for like why we're in couples therapy. Like, hopefully some of what we're going to do is be fun and interesting. Hopefully. Some of what we're gonna do is not. Like some of it's gonna be hard. Some of it's gonna suck. You're gonna have to say things you don't want to say and hear things you don't want to hear, and then we're gonna have to talk about it. And so if we have your love story to fall back on, like you know why you're here and what you're working on. And like it's not my job. I'm not gonna get you divorced. I'm not gonna keep you married. But like I do want to remind you, like, what's this touchstone? Like, because you also could have just talked to a divorce attorney or broken up, but instead you called a couples therapist. So I want to remind you why. And then I give the one homework assignment I give. And then we talk about it in the second session. And then we sort of go from there. It starts out as a lot of like, what happened recently? And then it shifts into like the process, as therapists like to call it, like what's going on? What's the pattern? What's the thing we can interrupt? Or like, you're ready for a dumb joke, right? It's charcuterie, right? We're going to lay it all out there and you're going to pick what you want from it.
Yep. Yep.
With individuals, usually the presenting problem, as it is referred to, is a little bit more urgent. So try to address something that like provides some level of relief in a first session. So it's not going to be deep. Like I don't need to know about your grandmother's maiden name in our first session. Like I want to know what's happening. Like let's see if we can make you feel a little bit, just a little bit better today. And so we'll like work our way through that. But a similar pattern, right? A lot of like this is what just happened to like this is what's happening. And eventually this is what happening like makes enough sense that we're like, all right, we'll leave it here. You can call me back if you change your mind.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that sounds very familiar to kind of how I do it. I do know colleagues and I really respect them, but they won't see people if they haven't filled out their intake forms, for example. To me, it's
I
like,
think I hit like 60% of this.
yeah, I want you to do it, but if you don't, I'm still gonna get that information one way or
I
the
think I finally took the question off of it, but there was one about your like last physical. I was like, I don't really care. But the disclaimer I tell people is like, if you feel like you have to get up and look up the answer to this, then I don't need to know that about you. Just skip to the next thing. So I like really wanted to keep it like accessible and like reasonably casual. I mean, I think we'll probably through the course of conversation over a couple sessions, like I will learn all the things that are on there, but sometimes it's good to know ahead of time.
for sure, for sure. Okay, let's see. Next question. Is there anything that still surprises you about therapy?
Um, I guess one first thing that like leaps to mind is that like I'm often the holder of hope.
Mm,
That like how hard it is for some people to see themselves, I guess is really a better way to put that. Like I see I see people who are like wonderful and interesting and smart and funny. Um like and they don't see themselves that way. And like I'm pretty sure most people experience them that way. I I think one thing that always catches me off guard is like how much even like in this medium online that like people's like you can feel people's mood or despair or their anxiety. Um, I think, and I'd like in this I would file very much under like a really happy surprise is like how like serendipity comes into play, like the way that like I connect with people or people find me. They're like we're there's this like meeting of something that if I were a cynic, I would just call coincidence, but like I like to live in a world with more whimsy than that, where it's like, oh, I think we were supposed to meet. And like a little bit of that vibe is fun.
mhm. Yeah, sometimes I say the universe did something there because it's.
Well, and like one client leaps to mind, like the reason she came to see me initially is like not my thing, right? Like about negotiating like polyamorous relationships.
Mm,
Like I like it. I think it's really fascinating. It's lots of fun. I've like really loved it. Like that's not who I advertise to. That's not like and it's like and it's evolved through from there to something different that like is totally in my wheelhouse. And it's like and we couldn't have known that when we first started meeting together, but like now it's like, oh, of course we do this.
yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I always love when people tell me why they're there and then we end up totally a different direction over
Mhm.
time too. It's like that kind of it's a surprise. What are you really here for? I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. What do you wish people knew or understood about therapy?
It's awesome. But like therapy is super accessible. I mean, I know there's like, I'm not an idiot, right? Like, I know there's lots of things that make it hard to access, but like that it really is available to anybody. Um, and I mean that literally and also figuratively, right? Like, there is no reason too big or too small to be in therapy. There is no, ideally, there's no resource like or hurdle that cannot be resourced to like get people into therapy. Um, and that having a place that's just yours, that's just for you, where nobody you're talking to has a vested interest in what you do and how it reflects on them is truly liberating.
Mhm.
And that a lot of like the dysfunction that we experience in our lives is because of like a quieted voice, right? And it got quieted for whatever reason. Spend a lot of time in therapy talking about it if you want to, but like to have a place where you get it back
Mhm.
incredible gift you can give yourself. And I think for people, whether they're associated with a family of origin, their biological family, their logical family, have a family of their own, like the modeling of I had something that wasn't working and I went to go do something about it, like an incredible thing that you also show other people. And the corny thing that, it's like some people are in therapy because there's somebody in their family who should be but isn't. Like that is true. But like it's yours. You get to keep it. You get to make decisions based on the things you learn about yourself and who you want to be in therapy that like people can't take away from you.
I love that answer. That's great. That was really good. Okay, so Do you have a tool or something that you generally like to kind of give people? Or, I mean, I know you see different niches clearly from what you were discussing, but
Yeah. I mean, I use bad jokes. That's my soft opening with people. I think for like I don't give homework, but I give encouragement. I said, I encourage you to think about this, or I encourage you to try this. And that considering that everything we do is just data for more exploration, like you didn't succeed or fail, or like you did a thing, right? Like, and let's talk about that. Um, I think like as far as like therapy tools, I'm trying to ground people in the, as we call it, like the here and now, but the idea of like that we can like do today and we could probably plan for next week and like forecast down the road. But there's only so much we can really do that impacts all of that stuff. Because if you reverse engineer any great accomplishment in your life, start with like the first thing. And so like let's work on the first thing. And I like love I really do love and like relish when people like step into their power, as people say, but it's like when you know who you are, at least in that moment, and can like assertively advocate for that as best of your ability and set a boundary as effective as it can be, and like you feel good about that, like I'll celebrate that with you all
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
And so we just like talk about like how did that go? Right? Like what did it feel like? Could you do that again? And so not to dumb down like the entire field of psychotherapy into like a couple of things,
Oh,
but
please do.
like setting effective boundaries and being able to reset them to like tie that to an effective consequence that you're willing to execute and like share what you think and feel in a way that's respectful of yourself and potentially of others. That's like sort of what we're teaching people to do.
Yeah.
Like my
Yeah.
brother used to tease me that I have 2 degrees in feelings,
Mhm.
that I spent 3 years in grad school and thousands of dollars to learn how to ask people how they feel. But I did, right? Like that's exactly what happened. Like I have degrees in communication. I
Mhm.
have degrees in like emotional intelligence. Or like I have a it's just the 1 degree, right? But it like covers all these bases where like the kind of people that I can help, the kind of people that I do help, and the things that make them so different is also exactly the thing that makes them the same. And
Mhm.
I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Love it. Good answer. Okay. So are you familiar with the Colbert questionnaire? Were you familiar with this before I mentioned it? Have you
Mm-mm.
ever? No. So do you ever watch Stephen Colbert? Late
Been a
night.
while.
Late night. I guess you
I
got
have children that
there,
really bite into my leisure
right?
TV time.
Fair. So he basically has got this questionnaire. It's kind of fun stuff, but then at the end you're known. I made my own version for therapists, so I'm asking
Yeah.
everybody these same questions. So
I'm gonna interrupt you. I have one you should add to the list if it's not on there. Um, it's my favorite icebreaker question for groups. What's one uninteresting thing about you? Because I think everybody's like, tell me something interesting about you. And they're all so rehearsed at this point,
Mhm.
which is like too much pressure. But like something uninteresting about you, in my experience, is like way more interesting than the interesting you could have told me. Like, for example, I don't like pickles. I do
Oh,
not like cucumbers, but I love relish on a hot dog,
oh,
right? Did you learn anything about me? Not really. But that's like way more fascinating than like, oh, ooh, this like thing that I've prepared of all these like years of icebreakers. I like relish, but I don't like pickles. There you go. I had somebody tell me once he puts his one sock on and then the shoe on. I was like, oh, that's right. It's like, and then it switches feet. I don't know. I'll remember about that about him forever.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Well, then you might like some of these questions
All
because
right.
I have a little bit of that spin, I think, in there. Yeah. Okay, this one's though an easy general, some might say puff piece. What is something that's making you happy these days?
New socks.
New socks.
100%. I'm obsessed with new socks. I even made a conscious decision because it's like a gift giving time of year to not buy new socks in the hopes I would get new socks as a gift.
Do you like ones with like certain patterns on them, or
When
you
you go
just
to the store and you see those like socks that are like 15 or $18 a pair, those are my socks.
love it? All right. Okay. What's your favorite app?
My favorite app. Lame. I love the Costco app. It's user friendly, it's helpful.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I go on that
Costco's.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, we found a protein bar they don't sell at my Costco in Nevada. Drove to
Ooh,
Nevada to buy it. It's lame, but that's true.
Costco, never lame to me at least. We're big fans. Okay, beach or mountains?
Oh. With the right weather, probably a beach over mountains, but if all things are constant, the mountains.
Okay, all right, little caveat. Favorite place you've lived or visited?
San Francisco, baby. Born and raised, this is home. Um, Lots of places, wonderful places to visit, but like this really does feel like home.
I didn't realize you were born and raised here.
I'm
You're
I'm a unicorn.
I know. Every time I meet, I know I have a couple friends who are ones, and I'm like always just like, wow, how? Tell me more. Okay. What's one thing that movies never get right?
Well, I grew up in a house with a firefighter, so mostly that.
Mhm.
Medicine, uh, very poor, although enchanting, very poorly depicted. I think therapists too. Uh, like there were real people. Not everyone. I think there's, we've all met a therapist like you can't turn it off. But in general, we're like real people. There's like things we like to do, don't like to do, love, hate, things we're working on ourselves. Yeah, and then it's like again, this might be my bias for like who I am as a therapist, but like you're not gonna get to know my social security number, like don't get it twisted. But like you're gonna get to know a little about me because like I'm a person and I feel like I'm much more relatable and understandable as a person as opposed to just this like reserved expert.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I never really loved that super psychodynamic.
Hmm.
If they ask you what your shoes were, you're like supposed to be like, "Huh, interesting. Why are you asking?" Like,
I'm
no,
not
just
doing
do what they are. Don't care. Um, okay, best way to relax.
it. Sort of ties to the earlier question. The beach. I like the beach. I don't get that much time to go to it anymore. But like I love to just like go sit at the beach and listen to the water. It's like prime if I have a burrito, I guess. But nowadays with a busy life, I really I like the like wind down ritual of like putting my kids to bed. They're still small enough that they like me and think I'm cool. It's like reading books and like snuggling. Like
Hmm.
sometimes it's aggravating, but overall it's cherished.
Yeah, love it. Okay, dream trip location.
Um, that's a good question. Like for vacations, like I want to go sit somewhere where I can get sunburned and eat a taco. Like
Hmm.
that's like my vibe, or substitute taco for something else delicious and handheld.
Mhm.
Um, but like trips, like a real trip, I would love to I don't know, like see the country, right? Like pick a country, go see it, see the history, see the like natural wonder. I'm into ecotourism, right? Like, is there a mountain we can go climb or a river we can like raft down or something like that? Um, yeah, I want to feel like full, like fulfilled, but tired at the end of a good trip.
Mhm. I like that framing. That's good. Full but fulfilled. I'll have to remember that one. Okay, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Buy Bitcoin. Um, no, I mean like the like canned like wise things, like it all works out. Like it did. It all like none of it made sense while I was doing it, but like the dots line up in reverse for sure. Um, yeah, I think the real thing I would tell my younger self is to like not just do the thing you were supposed to do or you thought you were supposed to do, but do the thing you wanted to do.
Mhm. Okay, least favorite chore.
Oh. Dishes. They're dishes and laundry because they like are seemingly never ending. Like the minute you're done with dishes, like the sink is full again.
Yeah,
It's
especially
like
with some little kiddo.
regenerative. Yeah, no, over. And changing sheets on bunk beds is challenging.
Fair, fair. That sounds like a real struggle. Okay. Favorite subject in school, like when you were growing up?
Is recess a subject? Um,
Could be.
I
Learning
guess
about the
like
body. I don't know.
psychology once it got like specialized and down in that, but like just growing up, probably history. I think history is really fascinating.
hmm Do you like any specific time periods?
No, I'm not like I haven't quite crystallized my personality like that yet.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Part of the reason I'm asking is, have you seen the Men Who Built America series?
Uh-uh.
There's a series, I think it was on like History Channel, and I just finished watching for like the second time the Frontiersmen. It's all about the westward expansion and some of the like key players. Super
Yeah,
fascinating.
that sounds fascinating. I mean, I think it's right. It's hard. Like history is written by the people who won. So it's like what part of I'm always curious about like what part of history didn't we not learn about? And in the day and age we live in, I think we learn more and more about it. But like going back to like when I was in school, like what we were taught about American history was like, this seems a little biased.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't agree more. Okay, clinical person or body of work that you admire.
Um, I don't actually know. I guess anybody who's like worked hard at this for a long time. Like being a therapist is hard. Like again, you sit and talk to people how they feel, right? But it's like the whole cliche of like, oh, the hairdresser, the bartender, the texter. Oh, I'm basically a therapist. It's like, no, no, you're not. I mean, I get it, right? You listen to people. I don't want to dismiss that. You talk to people, you ask lots of questions. You're a holder of secrets. There's like good research about training hairdressers to like spot the signs of domestic violence and help people coach through like how they should like leave a situation, right? It's like personal time that they get. But like most of those people have never had somebody tell them they're thinking about killing themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like my first family session I ever did, I was not prepared for. Nothing, literally nothing we did in grad school prepared me for it.
Mhm.
It went terribly, terribly. I was like, oh fuck, I'm supposed to be in charge here. And so I think the burnout in this industry is pretty high. Couple that with the amount of time and the effort and the energy it takes to get all the hours, the let's just be frank, the like terrible pay that most of us suffer through at the very beginning, and some of us suffer through for a very long time. In 2022, I walked a picket line for 64 days to prove to a billion-dollar healthcare organization that what I did mattered. I didn't really care. My counterparts in Southern California just celebrated their 74th day on the picket line today.
Oh, wow.
Not, but 2 years later, right? Like this is a field that does a poor job recruiting, does a terrible job retaining, and jettisons people. The barriers to entry are super high. Grad school is expensive. It is also, I don't know to get too high on the soapbox about it, but like there are some demographics that are overly represented in grad school and some that are woefully underrepresented. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And then we're like, oh, this mental health crisis. Everybody cares about when something bad happens, but nobody funds.
Yeah.
And so like mental health as a system in the United States functions barely on the backs of the overfunctioning, undertrained, underprepared staff that we spit out of grad school. And those people get burnt out, they go find something else to do.
Yeah.
And like, and then we're left with the mental health crisis and everybody's scratching head on why it happened. It's insane. Like it's totally insane.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you've put any appreciable amount of time into this work or even tried to, because you're like, I want to be helpful to people. I look up to you.
hmm It's a great answer. It's a good one. Um, yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's one of the things that I feel like I'm always trying to tell people, like, you don't get how much goes into just to get here and how many people I saw fall along the way who didn't complete their hours, who didn't end up or got licensed and, just
Do
kind of,
something else. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, happens often. Okay, out of the four seasons, which is the best?
I'm gonna go with summer. I'm still a big fan of summer. I think some of that's like a leftover of you weren't in school in summer as a kid. But I like summer activities. I like trips. I have kids now, so they make me take time off to go do stuff. Um, I also like, I don't really, as much as I love like winter sports, I don't like being cold. And so like, I don't want to be cold all the time. It's probably why I like San Francisco.
Not quite the summers. What was it, Mark Twain? The coldest summer I
The
ever spent was in San
coldest
Francisco.
winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco.
Okay. This is right up your alley. What would be the worst superpower to have? Superhero power. Worst one.
I think reading people's minds. I think people are like very enchanted with that an idea. You don't want to know what the bullshit most people are thinking about most of the time. Think about your own day-to-day life. Like what I thought about today on my way through like Costco.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to know that about everybody.
Nope. Nope. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay. What's your spirit animal? You had a spirit animal. What would it be?
Oh. Um, I don't know. Somebody once told me I was a polar bear. I don't know if that's true or not. I probably like a lion. I like being around people, but I like sleeping.
Okay.
So keep it
Okay.
cash.
Sleeping in the sun.
Yeah, good I got a good like color palette too.
There. Okay.
Good hair. I don't have any hair, so that's that.
Doesn't your brother too work with animals?
Yeah, he's well, was a zookeeper, now he works in conservation. But yes,
Uh,
animal related for sure.
yeah, I just remember him with like a picture of lions or some or cubs.
Cheetahs, baby cheetahs. Yeah.
Okay. Final question. When you look back at your life, what do you hope you'll be able to say?
Um, I think there's like a couple of layers to that. I think professionally, this it's like that we built something that lasted. Um, and that like I helped people. And like that's corny, right? Like all therapists want to think about they help people, but I want to think about like not just like me, like selfishly, like look at all the clients I helped. Like think about like the employees, like the therapists we've hired and how that helped them. And like maybe that's for the 2 or 4 years or 10 years or whatever they worked for us, right? But also how that like had a positive impact on their family and like their ability to buy a house, but also the number of clients that they got to help. And like again, like my dad's sober, he got sober for him. I'm like positive collateral damage on that. But it's like the things that like he did to take care of him that like changed all the people he interacted with before that he like made amends to, but also every person interacted with since then, he's had a positive impact on. It's like thinking about this like legacy of helping people that I won't even know and they will never know anything about me, right? Like boop, in the ripple in the pond kind of thing. I think personally that I like raised happy, healthy human beings that they're like as well adjusted as they can be and that they're kind. I don't know. It is really corny. And it's like, I'm not an idiot. Not everybody wants to have kids. And if you don't want to have kids, you shouldn't have them. They're a fuck ton of work. But if you want to have kids, like you should work hard on having good ones.
Hmm.
Um, and there's like a lot to life that adds meaning. Like they add meaning to mine. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I feel like I want people to like smile and then remember me, which is like sort of cringy to say out loud, but like to have that positive feeling.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I like it. It's that ripple effect. Um,
Mhm.
all right. You are known. How does it feel?
I'm trying. Good. It's nice. It's fun to hang out with you, Keely. I like you're one of my favorite people. And it's like we always sort of like run into each other at things and never spend any concerted time together. And so that's nice. And I realized as like started supervising people, I like talking about therapy and like not just like, oh, you could try this with this person, but like therapy is like a concept. Because I think it's wildly misunderstood. And so it was fun to take some time with you today to talk about therapy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right back at you. I think you'd actually be a really good professor hearing you talk about some of these things. I'm like, oh.
Does somebody else get to
Maybe
grade the
10 years
paper?
from now. Judging by that reaction.
Maybe one day. I don't know. We'll see.
I
That
think
sounds
it's
good.
I do think it is a skill though to take some of these concepts and put them into terms that people can actually understand. I think therapists get a little too heady about the jargon, right?
Don't
And
talk to me like a textbook.
Exactly. And you do a good job of that.
Thank you, Keely. Well, it was lovely to see you and a pleasure to spend some time with you.
All right. Thank you so much.